Welcome to NTD Evening News. Our top story tonight, President-elect Trump has his eye on buying Greenland. But the island's prime minister says it's not for sale. We find out why Trump wants it. $895 billion approved for 2025 military and defense spending. But after signing it, President Biden is also noting some of his concerns with parts of the bill. Jason Blair brings us the latest. And in Syria, protesters hit the streets of Damascus after a Christmas tree display was burned down. Meanwhile, Christians in the Middle East still celebrate the holiday despite the risks. Jason Perry reports. A major storm hits California, causing one death and part of its Santa Cruz Pier to collapse. David Lamb has more from the West Coast. And technical issues briefly grounded American Airlines flights nationwide today, causing delays just before Christmas. With millions traveling and winter storms looming, passengers bracing for a hectic holiday season. Christina Corona reports.
This is NTD Evening News. Live from our global headquarters in New York City, here's Tiffany Meyer.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Iris Tao, in for Tiffany Meyer. For the second time since his first term, President-elect Trump suggests that the U.S. should own Greenland. He says it's for national security, but could there be other reasons?
President-elect Trump wants land, but not just any land, land in the Arctic region. On Sunday, he said in a Truth Social post that the ownership and control of Greenland is an absolute necessity, and that the United States needs to take control for national security purposes. Some experts have suggested that the reason may go beyond national security, to include access to natural resources, trade opportunities, and global power. Trump mentioned buying Greenland during his first term. In 2019, he gave his explanation.
It's a large real estate deal. A lot of things could be done. It's hurting Denmark very badly because they're losing almost $700 million a year carrying it.
He said it would be beneficial for the United States strategically. 5 years ago, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo praised the Arctic region's abundance of untapped resources. He also touted other economic benefits.
Steady reductions in sea ice are opening new passageways and new opportunities for trade. This could potentially slash the time it takes to travel between Asia and the West by as much as 20 days.
Greenland is an autonomous territory within the Kingdom of Denmark. It has its own government and a parliament responsible for most domestic affairs. But the Danish government controls citizenship, monetary policy, and foreign affairs, including defense. In 2019, Greenland's former Prime Minister Kim Kielsen said the island wasn't for sale. And its current Prime Minister, Moot Gede, said in a Sunday post that it's not for sale. In 1946, President Harry Trump offered to buy Greenland for $100 million in gold coins, but the answer was no.
And President-elect Trump says he'll direct the Justice Department to vigorously pursue the death penalty to protect Americans from convicts who have committed serious crimes like violent rape and murder. Trump made a statement on social media platform Truth Social. It was in response to President Biden's announcement yesterday that he had commuted the sentences of most of the federal inmates on death row, converting them to life in prison without parole. The Trump transition team criticized Biden's decision, saying it favors convicts who are among the worst killers in the world. Trump restarted federal executions during his first term in office after a nearly 20-year pause. Biden ran for president opposing the death penalty and put federal executions on hold when he took office in 2021. Unlike executive orders, clemency decisions cannot be reversed by a president's successor, though the death penalty can be sought more aggressively in future cases. Despite noting some reservations, President Biden signs the National Defense Authorization Act. This approves $895 billion in military spending for 2025. NTD's Jason Blair brings us an update.
President Biden approved $895 billion for military and defense spending. by signing the 2025 National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA. He announced the news in a statement on December 23rd, while also noting some objections to some parts of the bill. He says, "While I am pleased to support the critical objectives of the act, I note that certain provisions of the act raise concerns." Biden pointed out that some provisions in the NDAA could require the president or other officials to share highly classified information with Congress, which could include sensitive military planning or intelligence. The president also objected to provisions related to the U.S. detention facility at Guantanamo Bay in Cuba. He says they will prevent the use of funds to transfer detainees from Guantanamo Bay to the custody of certain foreign nations as well as the U.S. Biden says in some circumstances, these provisions could make it difficult to comply with the final judgment of a court that has directed the release of a detainee. And Biden also says his administration strongly opposes parts in the act that, quote, inhibits the Department of Defense's ability to treat all persons equally under the law no matter their gender identity. This includes barring the Defense Department's TRICARE medical plan from covering transgender procedures for military dependents under 18 years old. Biden says the provision targets a group based on that group's gender identity and interferes with parents' role to determine the best care for their children. He also argues that it will hurt military recruiting efforts. Before being signed by President Biden, the NDAA passed the House 281 to 140. 200 Republicans and 81 Democrats voted yes. 124 Democrats and 16 Republicans voted no. In the Senate, it passed more decisively, 85 to 15. It had opposition by 10 Democrats, 3 Republicans, and 1 independent. The NDAA typically sees higher bipartisan support in both chambers. Many of the Democratic opposers this year also cited the TRICARE provision. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
Former President Bill Clinton has been discharged from a hospital today. That's one day after he was admitted for bird flu at Georgetown University Medical Center in Washington. The former president's deputy chief of staff said Clinton was hospitalized after developing a fever. Clinton is said to be in good spirits and hopeful to be home by Christmas. The 78-year-old has experienced health problems in the past, including a 4-hour bypass surgery in 2004. Doctors at the time said some of his arteries had been blocked for more than 90%. In 2010, Clinton had a procedure to place 2 stents in one of his arteries. The former president has kept a busy schedule in recent months that included campaigning for Kamala Harris and in recent weeks promoting his own new book. Christmas celebrations in the Middle East won't be the same this year as fighting continues in the region, and Syria attempts to build a new government under the leadership of a former al-Qaeda affiliate. But despite the risk, many Christians are celebrating anyway. NTD's Jason Perry has the story.
Protesters hit the streets of Damascus on Christmas Eve after a Christmas tree on display in western Syria was burned down. Although there was no immediate confirmation on how the fire was started, many people think it was done on purpose.
The burning of the Christmas tree, the attacks on churches, and in Malula, we do not accept this. As a Christian sect, we want our rights as Christians.
Residents in another part of Damascus celebrated Christmas Eve Mass as members of the Church Scout Group and fighters of the Syrian rebel group in power known as HTS provided security around the church.
The procedures taken by the men, may God reward them, and by the church, by the civil defense, and by the HTS are appreciated, and we are thankful, so we can celebrate Christmas.
And in the West Bank, the city of Bethlehem, where many believe to be the birthplace of Jesus, marks its second Christmas overshadowed by the war in the Gaza Strip. Bethlehem is usually visited by thousands of people from around the world this time of year. The city's mayor shared his thoughts.
Always the message of Bethlehem is a message of peace and hope. And these days we are also sending our message to the world, peace and hope.
And Christians in Lebanon, which is currently under a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah, also celebrated.
The church is having a Christmas recital to feel the spirit of Christmas. Nothing more. Happy holidays to everyone, and we hope next year will be a blessing to all.
Also on Christmas Eve, the Iran-backed Houthi terrorist group in Yemen said it fired a missile at a military target in Israel. Israeli forces reported intercepting a projectile fired from Yemen on Monday. Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, said on Tuesday that Israel will deal with the leaders of the Houthis. Meanwhile, the brother of a hostage still held in the Gaza Strip shared what he thinks is the only way to save the Middle East.
And to start some kind of a peace process somewhere in the Middle East. Everything has to start with bringing back the hostages.
There are still approximately 100 hostages believed to be held by Hamas terrorists in the Gaza Strip. And Qatar's foreign ministry spokesman said on Tuesday that talks between Israel and Hamas to reach a deal are ongoing. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Extreme weather on the West Coast. A major storm hit part of California, resulting in 1 death and the collapse of a Santa Cruz pier. NTD's David Lamb reports.
A major storm pounded California's central coast on Monday. It brought flooding and high surf. 1 man died, trapped by debris on Sunset State Beach in Watsonville. The local sheriff's office believes a large wave pinned him down. In Santa Cruz, the municipal wharf under construction partially collapsed and fell into the ocean, taking 3 people with it. 2 people were rescued by lifeguards and a third swam to safety. About 150 feet was estimated to have fallen off, containing public restrooms and a closed restaurant. The wharf remains closed indefinitely. Santa Cruz Mayor Fred Keeley said that section of the wharf had been damaged over time and faced destructive storms last winter. The current storm was expected to bring hurricane-force winds and waves up to 60 feet as it gained strength from California to the Pacific Northwest. Some California cities ordered beachfront homes and hotels to evacuate early Monday afternoon as forecasters warned that storm swells would continue to increase. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
American Airlines temporarily grounded flights nationwide due to a technical issue, coinciding with the start of the busy Christmas travel. NTD's Christina Corona tells us the latest.
The FAA issued a national ground stop at American Airlines' request around 7 a.m. Eastern Time Tuesday, but lifted it about an hour later. The airline noted the issue as a vendor-related problem with its flight operating system, which handles operations like dispatch, flight planning, and passenger boarding. Aviation analytics company Cirium says flights across American Airlines' major hubs face delays, with only 37% departing on time. Of the 3,901 domestic and international flights scheduled for Tuesday, 19 were canceled.
Oh, I was very anxious when we woke up this morning and we heard it on the news. We were afraid that we wouldn't be able to get home for Christmas, but we were able to. We got here and our flight is on time, so we are relieved and ready to get going back to Alabama.
Oh, we were scared. We wanted to be back home with our family, but thank God it got over. It was pretty quick.
The disruption comes during record holiday travel expectations. TSA anticipates screening 40 million passengers through January 2nd. Trade group Airlines for America predicts U.S. Airlines will carry 54 million passengers over a 19-day period that started last Thursday and ends next Monday. Despite Tuesday not being a peak travel day, heavy rain and snow in the Pacific Northwest and freezing conditions in the mid-Atlantic are expected to complicate travel further. As millions prepare to hit the skies and roads, volunteers at Houston's George Bush International Airport are helping ease holiday stress with therapy dogs.
But for the most part, they're pretty stressed out, and they really love seeing their dogs. A lot of people have left their dogs at home or have put them in boarding for the holidays, and they're missing them. So it's great to see the dogs and to actually pet them.
Airlines expect to have their busiest days on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Christina Corona, NTD News.
Police in Aurora, Illinois weren't about to let anyone steal their Christmas. Officers arrested a criminal only identified as the Grinch after he attempted to steal the city's Christmas tree. The notorious holiday troublemaker was taken into custody after a short foot chase. The Grinch told officers he was just borrowing the tree for some anti-holiday cheer, but they didn't buy it. The Grinch is being held at the City of Aurora Detention Center until after Christmas. Police are reminding everyone to safeguard their holiday cheer this festive season, watch out for green guys, and only open their chimneys for the real Santa. And coming up, Senate Republicans propose a budget reconciliation bill to be passed within the first 30 days of the Trump presidency. What is this legislative process? Luis Martinez walks us through it. And with the Democratic Party reassessing after losing the 2024 presidential race, Chris Pier speaks with New York City Councilman Robert F. Holden. He shares his take on the state of the party he's been part of for 50 years. Stay tuned for that after the break. Welcome back. Republican lawmakers are promising to send a budget reconciliation bill to President-elect Donald Trump within the first 100 days of his administration. House Republicans and Senate Republicans are already disagreeing on how to approach the legislative procedure. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez walks us through what a budget reconciliation is and the challenges we expect to see in 2025.
Budget reconciliation is a special legislative procedure that allows for the U.S. Congress to pass legislation through the Senate with a simple majority. That means with 51 votes or with 50 and the vice presidential tiebreaker. Now, budget reconciliation is not a silver bullet for any legislative proposal coming out of Congress. It has to deal exclusively with either spending, revenue, tax collection, or the deficit, the borrowing power of the federal government. The president still has to sign a budget reconciliation bill, so it's not only up to Congress to pass this legislation. And as I just mentioned, it has to be only related to spending and revenue. It cannot deal with anything other than that.
Y'all have heard me talking about our proverbial playbook we've been developing for about a year. It's well designed, and so we have a menu of options. What we're deciding right now is the sequence of how we run those plays, and it's really important. The House and the Senate have different calculations on how that's done.
Now, the process is as follows. The president draws up, usually in the first days of the year, a budget proposal, sends it to Congress, and then the Senate Budget Committee and the House's Budget Committee draw up reconciliation instructions with budget caps. They send those instructions to the different committees. The different committees come up with bills following those instructions. They lump them all together into an omnibus bill or an omnibus package, and that package has to pass exactly the same in the Senate and in the House. And once it does, it is sent to the president's desk.
The incoming administration, the Senate Republicans and the House Republicans, we got to take care of the border as a top priority, and we will. We've got to get the economy going again, and we will. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. The sequence and the use of reconciliation is really important.
Now, the trick, of course, is to have the House and the Senate agree on budget totals and budget priorities. Incoming Senate Majority Leader John Thune, who will lead Senate Republicans in the 119th Congress, has a budget reconciliation proposal of 2 budget reconciliation bills. According to John Thune, he wants to see within the first 30 days of a Trump administration a budget reconciliation bill to address border defense and energy. Of course, this would be relating to spending in these areas. And then his proposal also includes a second reconciliation bill within the first 6 months of Trump's presidency that will tackle taxes and other priorities. We already know that right here, Jason Smith, Congressman, chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, is in opposition of this proposal. He wants to see one big reconciliation bill tackling border defense, immigration, energy, and tax reform. Now, that difference, we'll have to see how it plays out and whether during the first 30 days of Trump's administration, Republicans can deliver a reconciliation bill.
The Democratic Party is assessing its presidential election laws and charting a path forward. Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin said his party is in, quote, the fight of our lives. He says the stakes have gone way up with Republicans in control in Congress and the White House and with 3 Trump appointees on the Supreme Court. To get a read on where the party stands, NTD's Chris Pier sat down with moderate Democrat New York City Councilman Robert F. Holden for his take on the state of the party he's been with for 50 years.
Councilman Robert Holden, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, my pleasure.
So let's just get right into it. What do you think explains the results of the November presidential election? And what do you think Democrats should take away from those results?
Well, the whole process was tainted from the beginning. The selection of Kamala Harris, I thought, was truncated because it really wasn't a process. It was actually one person, President Biden, deciding that he's going to support her. And I think the party didn't get a voice. But the party did what they wanted to do, and then the party has shifted way, way to the left, meaning you look at all their policies. And you saw the country is fed up with the far left in the party, and especially the socialists that have taken over the Democratic Party.
And what about the economy was the number one issue in this election cycle. In terms of lessons for the future, how do you think, should the Democratic Party change anything in terms of strategy or policy in relation to the economy?
They have to listen to their constituents, the elected officials at least in the party, who control everything. They also have to actually get to, like I mentioned, get to the center of things, not get all these crazy ideas like, oh, we should have open borders, and we should give away things to everyone. Everybody should, like Kamala had, what is it, $50,000 to buy a home. Everybody's going to, who meets the threshold will get their down payment on a house. I mean, you're giving away things that we can't afford. How are we going to pay for that? They don't think of that. So I'm more, like where there has to be accountability. You work hard, you save your money, you will buy a house.
So coming to New York City, Corona Queens, Harris performed 40% worse than Joe Biden did in 2020, while Trump, on the other hand, performed 57% better than he did in 2020. Those are big numbers, but we're seeing numbers similar to that across districts in New York City. What is your response to that, and what's been the experience of people inside your neighborhood that you can see that might point to what explains this?
I can tell you about Corona, why. It's quality of life. People saw they were losing their neighborhoods. Some of the people from Corona actually reach out to my office because they're just frustrated with the leadership in their sections. Because they said they're not listening. The council member or the state senator or the assembly person is not listening. We had crime going down for 25, 30 years in a row until the Democrat-run Assembly and Senate passed these ridiculous criminal justice reforms, which actually are in favor of criminals of all. I never thought I'd live to see the day where we're building up criminals. We're giving them more rights. We're giving them more leeway. We're not putting them in jail after crime they've committed. They're still walking the streets. And then we attack the police officer when they arrest a person because they didn't do it the right way, or they were maybe things got out of hand. And yet we nitpick on that. We don't talk about the crimes.
And last question here, Councilman. What is your hope for the Democratic Party long term? You spoke about feeling like they might not be on the right track.
Well, like I said, they have to start listening. The Democratic Party leadership has to listen to the electorate. They should learn a lesson from this. They won't, though, I don't think. I'm not very hopeful. So that's why, I've considered changing parties. It's still in my mind because I'm fed up. And many Democrats, the electorate out there, you saw a lot of Democrats vote. In fact, you mentioned Corona. It's almost, I would say, 98% Democrat over there. Yet, a lot of them voted for Trump, which I didn't think that would happen. I don't think anybody did.
Councilman Holden, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
And coming up, the Georgia Bulldogs are looking for their third title in 4 years. But will they have quarterback Carson Beck? Dave Martin joins us to discuss. And Christmas masses take place at a Notre-Dame Cathedral for the first time since the fire. Some visitors are surprised by the changes inside after the restoration. David Vives reports from Paris when we come back. And now for your sports news, we're joined by NTD's Dave Martin. Dave, a lot going on today, but let's dive into first women's basketball. Caitlin Clark was just named AP's Female Athlete of the Year. What do you make of that choice?
You know, I thought they got it right. I mean, she finished her college career as the NCAA's all-time leader in score, led Iowa to their second straight national championship game. Then she gets drafted first overall in the WNBA, ends up winning Rookie of the Year. She's an all-star there. Plus, she brought so many viewers to her games. Her last 3 NCAA games each successively broke records for highest TV ratings. They even outdrew the men's championship game, which is a first. I never thought that would happen. I mean, she then brought that excitement, really that viewership then to the WNBA. Some have already compared her impact on women's basketball to the impact Tiger Woods had on the PGA, which was immense. It's really hard to disagree with that, so I thought it was a good choice.
And now looking at college football news, the Georgia Bulldogs will be without their quarterback, Carson Beck, for the remainder of this season. How much of an impact will this have, you think, on their chances of winning the national title?
You know, on the one hand, it's pretty big. You know, he's by far their most experienced quarterback, and he's very good. He led the SEC in touchdown passes. He was 3rd in yards. At the same time, though, Georgia has got a really loaded roster. They're not exactly a one-man team. They had 14 players who were named the SEC first, second, or third teams, and none were actually even Carson Beck. But Beck is still considered by most to be one of the better quarterbacks in the country. So it looks like they'll use backup quarterback Gunnar Stockton. Stockton is a sophomore. He came on in relief of Beck in that SEC title game against Texas where Beck got injured. And they ended up winning with him there. So in a way, they are fortunate also. They left like 3+ weeks to prepare with Stockton for the Notre-Dame game, which is going to be next week in the playoffs. So we'll see if their game plan changes a bit because Stockton is a little bit more of a runner, but we'll have to see next week what they do.
And also tomorrow, the NFL is airing a few games on Netflix for the first time ever. Is there a concern about potential streaming problems like the ones we saw during the Mike Tyson game last time?
Yeah, Netflix is certainly hoping not. You know, for that Tyson fight, at one point there were like 65 million concurrent streaming views worldwide, which is a lot. For comparison, last year NFL games on Christmas got just under 30 million views. So you'd think they'd be better equipped for that number. Plus, NFL rules dictate that if a streaming service or cable TV is airing the games, they still have to have available an over-the-air station in the competing teams' markets. So these games will be on a few local CBS affiliates tomorrow as well. Now, as for the matchups, they're pretty good. You've got the 2-time defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs playing at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Both teams are in first place in their respective divisions. So that's the first game at 1 p.m. Eastern. In the latter game, you've got another good one. Baltimore at Houston. The Ravens are actually tied with the Steelers for the division lead. Houston, meanwhile, has already clinched the AFC South. So we got 2 pretty good matchups tomorrow there in the NFL.
Another thing to watch for tomorrow, there will be 5 NBA games on tap.
Yeah, this used to be the NBA's annual coming out party. I mean, their season technically starts in October, but that's during football season. People don't watch so much basketball at that time. So they were smart. They saw an opportunity on Christmas Day, and they usually get very good TV ratings. I mean, now the NFL has started to figure that out too, so it's kind of ate into that. But anyway, I like their matchups tomorrow. We've got the Spurs-Knicks at noon Eastern time. 7'4" Victor Wembanyama, a very fun player to watch. That's going to be at Madison Square Garden. Then you've got Dallas, Minnesota in a rematch of last year's Western Conference Finals. 5 o'clock, you got the defending champion Boston Celtics against Philadelphia. Then you got 2 evening games. You got the Lakers-Warriors. That's the big one, 8 p.m. Eastern time. LeBron James, Steph Curry, the 2 most popular players in the league going at it. Finally, the 10:30 game, you've got 3-time MVP Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets playing against the Phoenix Suns. This is a really good 5 really good matchups in the NBA tomorrow on Christmas.
Wow, a lot of people, a lot of fans will be watching from home, I bet.
I'm sure you will be too, right?
You too. And today, Christmas masses took place at a Notre-Dame Cathedral in France for the first time since the fire. An estimated 30,000 people are visiting the cathedral daily since its reopening to the public earlier this month. There are slight changes inside that may surprise those who have visited before the restoration. NTD's international correspondent David Vives reports from Paris.
The flow of visitors has resumed at Notre-Dame. In front of the cathedral, the line of visitors stretches across the forecourt. Despite a heavy crowd inside and outside, the cathedral is easy to access, even without booking, and it's still easy to move around inside it. For those who have visited the cathedral before, there are some slight noticeable changes in its appearance and interior design. One of the most visible changes is how the cathedral now seems to be bathed in light.
I came here a long time ago. It seemed much brighter to me. In the end, light really reveals its beauty.
Historian Mathieu Lours, who supervised parts of the restoration, says this is exactly how the cathedral was meant to look.
What you see in the cathedral is the blondness of the original limestone. Notre-Dame was designed so that the stained glass windows, with their dominant blue and red tones, would reflect on the walls and architectural elements, not on dirty walls, as was previously the case.
He said the restoration followed strict rules on what materials and techniques could be used. One objective was that visitors shouldn't be able to tell the difference between what has been restored or recreated anew.
This is the notion of authenticity, to be able to rebuild with the original materials, leaving no traces that allow us to perceive if this piece is from the 12th century, the 19th, or is new.
However, there are exceptions. A few contemporary paintings have been added to the left enclaves, facing the original artworks.
It's very beautiful, although there's some new contemporary art which personally bothers me. But apart from that, it's magnificent.
It's true, I'd never visited it. It makes you wonder why those things were there, but the rest is really incredible.
Lours said that the light inside the cathedral enhances its unique architecture.
When you enter the cathedral, you enter a forest of columns. We talk about columns rather than pillars. It's the way the Romanesque basilica have been built between the 4th and the 8th century.
The Notre-Dame diocese expects 15 million visitors to visit the cathedral in 2025. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Reclining airplane seats, a significant annoyance for many travelers. A lazy boy ad campaign is looking to ban this practice on flights. Here's the story.
Spilled drinks, unhappy flyers, unhappy knitters. Frustration and chaos everywhere is what this lazy boy ad wants you to see. Reclining on airline seats. It's a significant annoyance for many air travelers. 62% of Americans say it bothers them on short to medium daytime flights. CNBC reports that a lazy boy petition aiming to ban reclining on flights has garnered 186,000 signatures as of Monday.
For me, when somebody reclines, it's almost like a nutcracker, right? In my head is the nut, where now you're reclining into it. And it can be very painful.
Travel blogger Jen Ruiz likes to lean her head against the tray table when she sleeps. Multiple times, she's been woken up by the passenger reclining in front of her.
It's okay to recline your seat, certainly permissible. Certainly people do it on long haul or overnight flights. I think there's a way to go about it.
She says it's important to look behind yourself before reclining. Red flags that indicate you shouldn't recline include hot beverages, laptops, and or a child on a passenger's lap. And if you're the victim of a reclining passenger,
you can certainly ask them if they wouldn't mind bringing up their seat, but it's tone of voice and it's the way that you address them.
Etiquette expert Diane Gottsman says just because the seats can recline doesn't mean it's always okay to do so.
There is that button. You did pay for that seat, but just like in a grocery store, when you are pushing a cart, you're not going to get too close to the person in front of you. We have to know our boundaries.
Gottsman says passengers can book an aisle seat to get extra legroom. Booking the frontmost seat also avoids the problem. Going first class also works, but involves more money.
And coming up, Shen Performing Arts has begun its 2025 season. A city council member in Atlanta honored the artist with a special award. Christmas magic fills the air as dazzling angelic lights decorate Britain's busy shopping streets for the 70th year. Malcolm Hudson brings us more from London. And would you rather have fake Christmas trees or real ones? And what are some of your holiday traditions? Sam Wang hears from folks in DC when we come back. Shen Performing Arts 2025 season has begun. A council member attended the opening performance in Atlanta, Georgia, and presented a special award from the city to the artist. Take a look.
Atlanta City Council member Michael Julian Bond attended Shen opening night at the Atlanta Symphony Hall on December 23rd. He personally presented a city council proclamation to the artist.
Proclamations from the city of Atlanta are the highest awards that the city can present to a person, a place, or an event. And this fits the bill. Oh, it was just magnificent and overwhelming. I was obviously very, very impressed and very personally moved, not only by the choreography, the singing, the performance of the orchestra. I mean, it was really, really phenomenal.
Shen is known as the world's foremost classical Chinese dance company and has expanded into 8 separate groups performing all over the globe simultaneously. Its mission is to revive 5,000 years of Chinese civilization. Through music and dance, Shen portrays a vision of China before communism.
The people here tonight, I mean, everybody is just, you can see the impact on the faces of everyone who's attended.
I think it's our 3rd time. Yes. And the dance and the artistry and what goes into it is just remarkable. It really is.
The costumes were great. The movements were amazing. So technical.
We want you to come back often, and to keep going, and to keep extending this message, all around the world.
Shen will be performing at the Atlanta Symphony Hall in Atlanta, Georgia until December 27th. NTD News, Atlanta, Georgia.
Dazzling angelic spirits and bold geometric shapes light up central London this year as the British capital celebrates the festive period. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson visits the packed streets in London.
2024 is the 70th year, that's 70, that Regent Street here in London has been illuminated for Christmas. Tourists and locals fill the streets in what is one of the most packed shopping destinations in the whole of Europe.
And then there was light. This is the moment lights suddenly illuminate Regent Street in the heart of London's West End. Richard Elwood, Chief Marketing Officer of the Crown Estate, said Regent Street was the first street in the capital to adopt this tradition back in 1954.
We've got the beautiful spirits behind me over my left shoulder. There are 30 of them in total. We've got 300,000 LED lights.
Huge crowds line the pavements. Many also visit shops, getting on with Christmas shopping. Attractions like Christmas lights are becoming increasingly important for the high street as it faces stiffer competition from online retailers. Though according to Elwood, there is no sign of a slowdown in high street spending this Christmas.
In fact, actually, New West End Company are forecasting spend £1.7 billion in the West End over the festive period. So no, we're not seeing that slowdown. I think people want to come together, experience the camaraderie of the festive period.
London's West End is already in an advantageous position, benefiting from the many thousands of tourists who visit the capital over Christmas. One big attraction is the opportunity for photos and selfies. All along Regent Street, people are posing in front of their mobile phones. Many tourists and international visitors want memories to share with their family back home.
We took a lot of photos every year. Yeah, every year, like with different friends, and we took some kind of selfie here. And we have several different angles of the angel lights.
And I think the lights is romantic and kind of, shining and beautiful.
I think are really beautiful. Every year they are looking amazing. And I think this year is something different, but much, much nicer.
We want to know the lights of the Christmas in London. And it's amazing because in Spain we don't have light.
This year, the nearby Carnaby Street has installed bold geometric shapes, a shopping street made famous by the swinging 60s culture. 60,000 energy-efficient LEDs glow and fade throughout the evening. And London's busiest shopping street, in fact Europe's busiest shopping street, is Oxford Street, which this year is overhung with twinkling stars.
As you can see, the iconic red London buses glide under the lights as they make their way down the busy road. Lights which will be turned on every night until January 5th. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News London.
It's the time of the year to set aside politics and bring some friendly Christmas debates. Would you rather have fake trees or real ones? And what are some of your holiday traditions? NTD's Sam Wang was out on the National Mall in DC to hear from people.
Fake trees or real trees? I'm gonna have to go with fake trees. I have a cat, so having a real tree isn't an option.
No preference. I always want a real tree, but
we use fake trees.
If we could do real trees, I would do a real tree.
Real trees, but they caved and bought a fake tree. I'm not the one who cleans up, so I guess they get to make that decision.
Fake trees at this point, yes. Fake trees are a lot easier to take care of.
Real trees until about 10 years ago, and then we went to fake.
Fake. I don't have to worry about it. Getting a tree. Getting a tree right before Christmas, so it's already there.
Real tree. Honestly, the whole of having to properly take care of it too. You want your Christmas tree to be healthy and you got a real one? Well, guess what? Put some brown sugar in the water. It keeps the tree a little bit healthier longer.
What's your usual Christmas tradition?
Usually visiting family, wherever they're at. They're spread all the way from California to the East Coast, so we usually do a little traveling.
We're gonna go to California, hang out in San Diego, probably go to the beach. I don't know. We're gonna do what we're gonna do.
We usually spend Christmas in Central Illinois with my wife and her family.
We do fondue, like a meat fondue at Christmas Eve.
We go to church on the 24th in the morning and then watch TV for 3 hours and then open presents and have dinner in the evening on the 24th.
We usually get together on Christmas and have a big dinner. It would start at my parents' house, and then we'd go to my ex-husband's house and we'd have dinner with them also.
Dinner with family for sure. Open it gifts Christmas morning.
We get to just open one gift, only one gift, but we get to choose. I learned that lesson one year when I was like 7, and I got like I opened the biggest gift. So on Christmas morning when I woke up, I didn't really get that joy of what's in that gift, right? It kind of helps you teach too. Like my mom had made me learn a lesson as a kid, like you wait, and the more you wait, you'll actually get rewarded.
While public anxieties have loomed over the Northeast amid possible drone sightings, a different kind of sightings bring holiday cheer across the country. Santa Claus.
We track Santa just to make sure that he can traverse safely across the world, but also to make sure that we tell children all over the world where he is so they can make sure that they're in bed and asleep by the time he gets to their area, because we all know that he'll pass them by if they're not asleep.
The North American Aerospace Defense Command, or Norad, is once again tracking Santa and his reindeer around the world. Norad is responsible for protecting the skies over the U.S. and Canada. It activated a Santa tracking system at 6 a.m. Eastern Time today. Santa watchers can follow his journey at noradcenter.org to take part in the yearly Christmas tradition. This is the 69th year Norad has tracked Santa's journey around the world. The tradition began in 1955 when a child phoned the Continental Air Defense Command Operations Center asking for Santa Claus. And according to Norad, Santa is flying over Denmark's Aero Island right now, and he's delivered over 4.5 billion presents so far. And that's all for today's news. For round-the-clock coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Iris Tao, and from all of us here at NTD News, Merry Christmas and good night.